dragged into it. But the seer told us Germany's future. May God be with her. Now we move to step 2, now consider and ponder the following. Step 1 is complete 1 week after the Queen is laid to rest. For those of you again who followed this channel from 2 years back, I was given the vision that this is all part of the vision of the seers when he spoke about the women with the blue eyes dying. So that dream vision is fulfilled. I was given information this past week which blew my mind. I cannot find the source online. Online they say something else, but from the source I have they claim something else. In the media, for the masses, the Queen's funeral was called Operation London Bridge, but my sources say, the inner circle of this entire operation was and is known as Operation Trafalgar. Operation Trafalgar is the actual code name for the funeral. Remember the dream vision. This entire channel's existence is based on the first dream vision of this funeral and the laws being removed before world peace is broken. Many of the previous dreams, insights, visions will make more sense now if you go back on the channel. While praying, I asked the Almighty what is the meaning of this location and why the Queen was buried there, and like the Russian vision given to me in prayer, I was shown a scene. I heard the words while watching the scene while praying. I was told, this is the beginning of the end and that the end is the beginning of all to come. We see now shortly, 1.5 weeks after the Queen was laid to rest, that Russia annexed these regions. At the same time they speak about nuclear weapons. This brings me back to the timeline dream vision. Remember, I said when I had the timeline dream vision, I cannot believe that all will take place before December 2022. It was back then and to a degree now, too much for me to comprehend. If this timeline dream vision is correct, if it plays out like I have been shown, if I have interpreted it correctly combined with what has been mentioned on this channel, then it is very possible we will be and are already in World War III. Step 2 is World War. Before I discuss these recent dreams, it's important to not leave out what is happening with Turkey. Turkey and Greece is picking up. The war is building on this front also. Just last week the Turks were pushing or attempting to push more than 100,000 migrants into Europe. The caravan of light they called it. So we see this picking up. The actual migration into Europe has not stopped. It will only pick up with famine hitting third world countries. Famine and inflation will cause more to move up to go towards Europe. As things get worse in South Africa, you will see many migrants leave to head for Europe. The roads in Africa over the past 2 decades have been improved. Transportation to the tip of North Africa has never been easier, and so we will see more head to Europe. Just this past week I saw in Britain, in England there was a gathering of people protesting the amount and influx of migrants into Britain. As one of the people at the march mentioned, all those people, mainly men, young healthy fighting age men. We do not know where they have come from, what training they have had, if they are proxies for something else. They have no children with them and no women, at least most of them do not have their women and children with them. So again, if the men in Europe are sent to fight, their women and children will be in great danger with all these third world predators running around. We are in such a dangerous time right now in the West. I shudder to think the danger we are in. The seer mentioned a vision where he saw a blue stone grinding against something yellow, something along those lines with Islam. We have seen the recent statements where a minister in Germany called Recep Erdogan, president of Turkey, a dirty sewer rat. The EU is getting annoyed with Turkey and Turkey is getting annoyed with Greece, France and Italy. Italy, as you have seen, has become nationalistic along with Sweden. So the growing and brewing nationalism is picking up. America, as one dream vision showed, is on the brink of civil war or civil unrest. You saw the recent statements by Joe Biden about the MAGA crowd, the Donald Trump supporters. The Make America Great Again supporters of Trump were literally labeled nothing short of domestic terrorists. The white Americans are going to be in the same situation as white South Africa was, because it is being waged by the same people. We had the same Western influence forcing us from the 60s to the 90s and even today to accept this new Western way of life. Now their focus is on white America. White America need to study South Africa to see their future. You dear viewers and listeners, should you have the opportunity, wake them up. They are in grave danger. We have seen what complacency does to a nation. Complacency is like rust. Complacency, enjoying sports, entertainment, all these things though nice are nothing but traps. In the state of complacency they move the pieces to ensnare you. Their once upon a time beloved Disney is now convincing them to accept all evils. My grandmother always warned us about Disney films. She never liked cartoons, she always said they were there to warp children's minds. Everyone scoffed at her words. How wise were our elders. We thought many of them were old-fashioned. Now we see with time the wisdom of their words. The wisdom of the seer warning us they would use our most beloved form of entertainment, being rugby, and how they would use that against us. The same way they used our lust for entertainment against us in the end. I know this might sound old-fashioned, but what is wrong with old-fashioned values? Is it really progressive to convince boys they are girls and girls that they are boys? To warp our children's minds where they are so confused, where they are robbed of their innocence and taught all kinds of perversity. Guard and protect the children, let no one warp them and turn them against you. Children are only children for so long, why rob them of their innocence? It takes a special kind of evil to want to warp children's minds. May the Almighty curse those who wish to warp and do harm to innocent children. So I will leave that there and we go back to the dream visions. With step 1 complete, step 2 or stage 2 of this war picking up with Putin calling his new war in Ukraine a terrorist operation. It is also possible we will see a nuclear weapon go off. It seems this way. This brings me to the dream vision on the 26th of September 2022, I passed the dream vision below as it was put on the channel. Last night in and out of dream state, the 26th of September 2022. I am above Ukraine. Below me I see those regions with the voting all turn red, see other dream vision of entire Ukraine turning red in the end from about 7 to 8 months back, while below me I am watching events from above looking over Ukraine. I see from the Polish side NATO forces amass, then I see the entire border on my right, which is Russia on the Ukrainian northern borders. I see a long line of Russian soldiers, lines of them stretching for miles upon miles all along the border ready to descend on Ukraine. While above I see a large mushroom cloud form over the region between Pervomaisk and Poltava. Within this vicinity I see it go off and the cloud goes high up into the air. Then I see lots of missiles from Russia pointing to Europe plus America, sharp slender looking missiles. I did not see who unleashed the weapon. I am guessing it is Russia since it was close to these new red territories which have voted. The scene I saw was a complete showdown war now between NATO in this area that picks up greatly. This mushroom cloud clearly looked like a nuclear detonation, or it could signal heavy fighting in this region. I saw flashes of light on the ground near these new red borders, new territory of Russian, and then suddenly I saw a massive mushroom cloud form. On the Polish border, I saw NATO forces ready to storm in with their military. Now I do not know who released this weapon. It is pretty close to these new regions, so it could be from the west side, or it could be that the NATO forces are so close and shelling those new Russian regions with weapons from those regions that something goes off and is released. So I have had now nuclear weapon dreams going off now back to back. The same happened with the Russian invasion. They sped up the closer the event got. We have 3 months left of this year. Now combine the land question in South Africa, the events taking place in the world. A cold winter, the Europeans will be very occupied with Russia. A cold winter, energy problems and all taking place. This is the opportune time for events, for the communist scumbags to make their moves in South Africa. With Ramaphosa, with Nalde Pandor turning down the global Western elites, not choosing sides. They know the trigger, the grenade is the land question in South Africa. By pushing forward the land question, by saying they back it so long as it is democratic, they are literally pulling the pin out of the grenade. The first time land is taken is when the grenade will be thrown in the air. When it hits the ground we know what happens next. Now will they take Ramaphosa's farms? Will they touch the Zululand Inganyama Trust? Or will this simply be another attack on the whites like they have done with all their attacks, from brutal farm attacks, renaming our cities, roads, removing our language, culture and everything else they have done in the country? I have always said, and again, I will mention it again. This channel is a channel not to scare you but to wake you up. The media lie, the media are not going to tell you until it is too late to prepare. Step 1 is complete in Europe, step 2 is total war. It will start out slowly and then quickly move to the next phase. During this phase we have the darkness over the Republic the seer mentioned. Another thing came to me the other week. The seer mentioned in the future when they force our men to go up north to fight, our women and children will face the greatest danger. I notice a lot of his visions about our men, women and children facing the dangerous time also apply to Europe. The European men being drafted to go fight, their women and children also face danger with the ever-growing migrants in their countries. If the migrants would not even fight in their own countries, do you think for 1 minute they will fight for Europe or a better future? No, they will stay behind and behind with the women and children in those countries, and so as our women and children face this great danger when and as this thing picks up in Europe, the European women and children will face the same dangers. After all, the seer's people were his own European folk here in South Africa, but we are but an extension of our larger European brothers and sisters. Whether in America or Western Europe or around the world, all our women and children around the world will face this danger when the devil's children get our men to go fight this war. I pray, I hope we have some common-sense people who say no, it is not our war. The West, who we are supposed to fight for, did to the peoples in the eastern Ukraine exactly what they have done to us in our country. Those poor Russians in the east we violently and brutally attacked by far-right elements, prevented from speaking their own language, their culture was banned, they are Russians. Do not get me wrong, I am not taking sides, I am simply stating a fact. The Western elites had for decades been guilt-tripping whites about being racist, far-right when they never were, but then they go ahead and support, finance far-right-wing elements in Ukraine. It does not make sense, it does not need to make sense, because these Western global elites, who in fact are not even Western or our people but rule us with their finance, their fiat currency, hate Christians, hate Europeans, and have been behind all the coups, wars, revolutions in Europe, each time getting closer to completely destroying white Christendom. They in the past opened the doors to the Moorish invasion, assisted with the Ottoman invasion, assisted with the Mongol invasion, pushed communism into Europe, liberalism, the revolutions in the past. We can call them the Illuminati, the New World Order, the Jesuits, the Order. At the end of the day you can trace this order going back to King Herod to around 43 AD, when he was approached by his Pharisees to combat this Christian magic, and their first order was created, called the Order of the Mystery Force. The Mystery Force is none other the Almighty, who rose up the Messiah from the dead along with those who rose from the dead or posed a threat to their religious order of the day. They created the beginnings of this order already back then, and in fact we can tie it back